More than 40 people have died across North Africa and Europe following wildfires that threaten villages and holiday resorts. Thousands of people have been evacuated as well. The current long heat wave shows no signs of letting up, as temperatures are expected to rise above 44 degrees Celsius in parts of Greece. Here's more in this report.
Fires raging across Greece for more than a week have begun abating, even though firefighters still battled on several fronts to contain blazes that have killed 3 people and caused thousands of tourists to evacuate. Water-bombing planes today flew through dense smoke to tackle the wildfires on roads. On Tuesday, aerial footage captured wildfires burning across the country. Video taken from a Turkish firefighting aircraft showed columns of smoke rising over burning bushland. Businesses on the island of Rhodes have been affected. Hotel and restaurant owners speak of the horrors they experienced fighting to save their businesses and the lives of their guests.
I had people with asthma here. This man worked a lot. Come, Petros, come. He went to the pharmacy to brought a spray for asthma. We had people with heart attack. We tried to bring oxygen here. It was before my uncle. We opened the kitchen to feed the people.
We don't know from where we start. Now we don't have money to do something to rebuild the restaurant. We spend a lot of money this winter to change everything in machine and to rebuild the restaurant, and 3 months now we finished and everything is burned.
Firefighters in Italy struggled to contain a wildfire that set a beach in front of tourist destination Vieste on fire. State news media says around 2,000 people were evacuated from 3 hotels due to the vast wildfire that broke out in Baia San Felice. They said they carried out 540 interventions in Puglia, with 2 Canadairs deployed between Vieste, Vico, Ruggiana and Guttarella. Firefighters battled wildfires spreading in the area of the Croatian Adriatic city of Dubrovnik on Tuesday, with strong southerly winds preventing the deployment of aircraft. Video loaded to social media shows night footage of flames and smoke rising from hills surrounding the coastal town of Kaftat, around 20 kilometers south of the medieval Mediterranean town of Dubrovnik, a top tourist destination in Croatia. More than 600 firefighters backed by 40 aircraft have been battling to control a wildfire for second day in the Turkish southern tourist district of Kemer today. Turkish media reported the affected area was more than 180 hectares of ground, but was not yet threatening residential areas. Video released by forestry authorities showed dense smoke billowing from the area. Wildfires broke out near Latakia, Syria on Tuesday as high temperatures and parched ground sparked wildfires near the port city. Large areas of the Mediterranean sweltered under an intense summer heat wave on Tuesday, and firefighters battled to put out the blazes across the region. Finally, Algeria has been battling to contain devastating forest fires along its Mediterranean coast in an inferno which has killed at least 34 people. Authorities say they've managed to control about 4/5 of the blaze. The firefighters broke out in several provinces in Algeria on Monday, ripping through forests, olive groves and low-lying shrubland. More than 8,000 firefighters were deployed to bring the flames under control. Algerian Civil Protection Services said 15 fires were raging across 8 regions on Tuesday.
Joining me now is Voice of America's Anthony Karasava from Athens. Anthony, welcome to the program and thank you very much for being here. Now, on Tuesday, we learned that the fires in Greece had spread to 2 more islands. That was Evia and Corfu. How many islands have been affected by the wildfires in total?
Well, there's several parts of the country that have been affected. Obviously, this is where the biggest fronts are. There are 90 fires in total across the country that firefighters and authorities are trying to bring into check and to contain. The biggest ones are in roads, as you said, in Evia, and on the flip side, on the western side, in the Ionian Corfu. And because of the weather conditions, we're well within the throes of a ferocious heat wave with temperatures well over 40 degrees and a risk rating here of 5, which is the highest, which means that the risk of forest fires erupting because of these conditions is extremely high. And these are conditions which Crete is also facing, where authorities are also very much on high alert. Don't forget, it is the flagship destination here for tourists. We're at the peak of tourism here. So all hands on deck also on Crete.
And we know that so many tourists have been eager to leave the island because of this. What's the situation now on the ground with relation to the tourists?
Well, actually, I have been speaking to a lot of hoteliers and a lot of tourists who have suffered. It depends really the island and the location that you refer to. For example, in Rhodes, when I was speaking to many of the hoteliers there, deal with what they call the customers who are so-called repeaters. They come almost every year, and their phones, in fact, are inundated with people who are calling in and expressing their support, their solidarity, and vowing, in fact, to come in despite these dire conditions and to continue with their holidays here. However, those who have been hit by the fires are not disingenuous to the Greeks, because they have received quite a bit of help from the Greek authorities. They are angered, however, at British, for example, travel operators and tour operators who have left them in limbo, unable to return to their homes, left without any documents. Don't forget, there were 19,000 people, primarily Britons, who were evacuated here in the biggest such operation that we've seen in living memory here. And they were literally called out of their hotels in their swimsuits, in their flip-flops, without any money, without any documents, to go into safe areas. And they were forced to take refuge in stadiums, in schools, in Greek homes. And they felt that they were in limbo because the British authorities were not moving fast enough to facilitate their return to their country. But as far as tourism is concerned, here, of course, travelers are canceling. These recurring images of forest fires in Greece are causing cancellations, but at the same time, the Greeks are saying we will bounce back and we will provide safe grounds here for travelers.
And the wildfires are pretty much a recurring occurrence for residents in that area. It happens to be happening every year, but how prepared are they, given that?
I'm sorry, I didn't get that question. The connection is really bad.
How prepared are they, given that these wildfires do happen almost yearly? How prepared are residents?
Absolutely. That is at the heart of criticism here, because the government has come out and attributed much of this to climate change. But climate change is not responsible for triggering a forest fire. It simply adds to the conditions that aggravate a forest fire. Of course, there are stifling conditions, very dry weather, and rising temperatures here. But at the same time, there are investigators and, in fact, counterterrorism officials who are on the ground, primarily on the island of Rhodes, trying to locate what they suspect are arsonists who were spotted by locals zipping through forest land on motorcycles, tossing little gas canisters or spilling the ground with other flammable material before lighting a torch to this. Some are pyromaniacs, others are arsonists for other reasons, but still no investigation. The investigation so far has yielded no concrete arrest. There have been several who have been taken in for questioning, but they have been released because no incriminating evidence has been found.
As a result of all these wildfires, they've been happening more and more across countries in Europe and in the Mediterranean. Are there any collective efforts that are taking place to kind of curb this whole situation that's developing?
As far as climate change is concerned, well, Greece, for example, it is taking a lot of action, especially in the capital where half of the population resides, to open up greener spaces and to make it more sustainable. But obviously, these are ancient cities, and the problem with these ancient cities is restructuring, revamping, and almost remaking ancient cities that have been built up with concrete structures, some of them very ugly features of modernity. And these are projects which, of course, the government here is very much in tune with and aligned with into, going ahead with. But these are costly affairs and they will take a long time. So in the interim, there are a lot of kind of what we are calling, at least critics are calling, kind of band-aid solutions here, there, cooling centers, more greenery, trying to be opened up. Even buildings that are being erected, kind of being more sustainable. And on the ground is also, as far as fighting these wildfires, joining forces between neighboring states and also the government, for example, the Prime Minister, Kyriakos Mitsotakis, vowing to add on to Greece's aging and old fleet of water-dropping planes and firefighting engines to purchase new ones. But again, it's not just climate change and it's not just these resources. It's also, tracking down those people who are responsible for setting these forces, these blazes, and also for the government, likewise, to be setting effective action plans that will instantly go into force and into play so that these blazes can be contained from early on. And a lot of criticism is focusing on that these strategies and these collective efforts were not in play.
All right, thank you very much for that, Anthe. Please do stay safe out there. That was our Voice of America correspondent, Anthe Karasava. And talking about the heat wave in the Mediterranean, those in America are also feeling a bit of that, or a lot of it, depending on where you are in the United States. For instance, in Arizona, there is extreme heat and a prolonged drought, which has taken its toll not just on residents, but plants as well. Research scientist Dr. Tanya Hernandez says plants are showing signs of distress, such as losing their arms, falling, leaning, and changing shapes. She says researchers still don't know if this is related to extreme heat and drought due to climate change, but they suspect this is the case.
We are kind of concerned in the garden, and many people, many friends of the garden are concerned because we have seen saguaros in particular, but this can happen to any other type of cacti as well. We have seen them suffering the effects of extreme heat and drought. Some people report that saguaros are falling, saguaros are losing their arms, the shape is changing, they are leaning, and we still don't know if this is related to extreme heat and drought due to climate change, but we suspect that is the case. The heat is affecting everybody, right? And we are seeing that everywhere in plants, not only in urban areas, but also in the wild. We see that populations of agave or cacti, that is what we study here, are suffering, particularly for the lack of water. everybody always had thought that cacti are perfectly adapted to heat and drought. For that reason, nobody has studied how more extreme temperatures than these ones can affect them. So we just started, right? And we're going to see, we're going to go out there, take samples, see how they deal with this at the molecular level, what genes are turning on and out, and we're going to start studying this. Phoenix is the perfect location for that. These plants are adapted to this heat, but at some point the heat needs to cool down and water needs to come, and if that doesn't happen, the prolonged exposure to extreme heat without being able to cool down affects significantly the plants.
And extreme weather is happening in Asia as countries expect impact of Typhoon Doksuri. Doksuri has, however, hit the Philippines, leaving thousands without electricity. This eyewitness footage shows the Chico River gushing and two vehicles trapped in the distant bank by the overflowing water. According to local media, the vehicles were later swept away. Residents in coastal communities were evacuated ahead of the storm, which brought with it winds of up to 175 kilometers per hour. The storm is expected to sustain strength as it continues towards Taiwan and China. Speaking of which, Typhoon Doksuri brought heavy rainfall to Taiwan as authorities issued land warnings for several countries and cities in the south. State broadcaster CTS showed emptied shelves at a supermarket as local residents anticipated having to remain indoors for another day. Nearly 50 domestic flights and 4 international flights, as well as many ferry lines, were canceled, while railway services between eastern and southern Taiwan have been suspended. As a precaution, authorities called for the evacuation of people in the southern and eastern part of the country. Doksuri is still being expected in China. In the southeast Fujian province, fishing boats sought shelter as authorities prepared for the oncoming storm. Authorities evacuated tourists, workers trimmed tree branches, and cables were secured on electric poles to prevent damage and accidents. The typhoon is expected to be the most powerful to land in China so far in the storm season this year. It's expected to make landfall on the Chinese mainland somewhere between Fujian and Guangdong provinces this Friday. Indians in Delhi have had a hard time getting home following flooding, all thanks to the Hindon River that overflowed. Hundreds of vehicles were submerged in a commercial neighborhood in Noida City. People living near River Hindon's banks had to move to higher ground while many schools were closed. Residents have found it difficult to commute on heavily waterlogged roads, which also lead to huge traffic snarls as heavy rains poured in the Indian capital. Let's turn to here in Africa to what many have come to believe was a coup that took place in Niger. A statement by Nigerian President Bola Tinubu, who is also ECOWAS chair, says information filtering in from the country indicates some unpleasant developments around the country's highest political leadership. He says it should be quite clear to all players in the Republic of Niger that the leadership of the ECOWAS region and all lovers of democracy around the world will not tolerate any situation that incapacitates the democratically elected government of the country. Now, he says ECOWAS leadership will not accept any action that impedes the smooth functioning of legitimate authority in Niger or any parts of West Africa. President Tinubu says he is closely monitoring the situation and developments and will do everything to ensure democracy is firmly planted, nurtured, well-rooted, and thrives in the region. He also goes on to say he is in close consultation with other leaders in the region and will protect the hard-earned democracy in line with the universally accepted principle of constitutionalism. President Tinubu says Nigeria stands firmly with the elected government in Niger and equally conveys the absolute resolve of leaders in the sub-region not to waver or flinch in its stand to defend and preserve constitutional order. We can tell you relative calm has been restored on the streets of Niger, Nigerian capital Niamey today, despite concerns of a coup in the country. So, what has happened in Niger? Here's what we found out. President Mohamed Bazoum is being held inside the presidential palace by his own guards. The presidency has issued a statement saying Bazoum and his family are well, and that the presidential guards have begun an anti-Republican movement in vain, and that the National Army is ready to attack them if they do not come to their senses. The statement was also later deleted, and we are unsure who is in control in Niger. Earlier today, we received reports soldiers had taken control of all roads leading to the national television station, which was playing a children's French lesson. Any potential military takeover could complicate a Western-backed fight against a jihadist insurgency in the Sahel region. Niger has been a pivot ally for Western powers who have faced growing acrimony from new junta in Mali and in Burkina Faso. Sudanese refugees separated while fleeing violence in the Darfur region have had a tearful reunion in neighboring Chad. Hundreds of refugees are relocated daily from a gathering point at the Chadian-Sudanese border to several camps further into the country, according to Captain Romain, who is responsible for the detachment operating the relocation of refugees. Around 10,000 Sudanese refugees have been relocated to camps so far, added Romain. Some have reunited with members of their family, while others grieved the loss of ones back home. The French army is assisting with the relocation of refugees at the request of the Chadian government in coordination with the UNHCR and other local aid agencies. The ongoing fighting in Sudan for more than 100 days now gave way to ethnically targeted attacks by Arab militias and the RSF in West Darfur, from which hundreds of thousands of people have fled to Chad. Coming up after the break, a crew evacuated from a cargo ship carrying 3,000 vehicles that caught fire off the Dutch coast. Stay with us. And welcome back. Authorities have evacuated the 23-strong crew of cargo ship carrying 3,000 vehicles, which caught fire off the Dutch coast today. One of the crew members died in the flames. The fire began Tuesday night on the 199-meter Panama-registered Fremantle Highway, which was en route from Germany to Egypt, spreading so quickly that several crew members were forced to jump overboard. Rescue ships sprayed water onto the burning boat to cool it down, but using too much water risked its sinking. The Fremantle was later towed out of shipping lanes. Bilateral talks now. Russia's defense minister Sergei Shoigu has called North Korea an important partner for Russia as he met his counterpart Kang Sun-nam in Pyongyang earlier today. After years of pandemic isolation, North Korea is hosting senior Chinese and Russian delegations for 70th anniversary commemorations of the Korean War and the struggle against the United States and its allies. The visiting dignitaries, which also includes Chinese Communist Party Politburo member Lee Hong-jong, are expected to be presented with one of North Korea's signature events, a massive military parade showcasing its latest weaponry. The visits are the first known foreign delegations to visit North Korea since the COVID-19 pandemic began, and come as Pyongyang has looked to deepen its ties with Beijing and Moscow, finding common ground in their rivalries with Washington and the West. Still ahead on the program, ready for some Pope cookies? You would be if you were in Portugal anticipating the Pope's visit. Stay with us. Welcome back. The U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin is in Papua New Guinea today, the first stop of his trip to the Indo-Pacific region. Austin is expected to meet Papua New Guinea's Prime Minister Marape to discuss new bilateral defense agreements between the two countries. According to the Pentagon, Austin is the first Secretary of Defense to visit the island country. Later in the week, Austin will travel to Australia, where the largest Australia-U.S. military exercise is due to begin. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is also in the region, visiting Tonga, New Zealand, and Australia. And in other news, Indian consumers say they have stopped eating tomatoes, and many restaurants in the country have cut back on its use after the vegetable's price surged more than 500%. Used widely in Indian cooking, tomato prices have hit record highs in recent weeks as a monsoon rains disrupted supplies at a time when seasonal product is typically low, forcing the government to organize mobile vans for subsidized sales. Many McDonald's and Subway outlets have dropped tomatoes from their menu items, citing quality issues. But higher food prices are having a broader impact across the industry, while pushing headline inflation numbers above the central bank's medium-term target. India's average per capita income is estimated to be around $200 per month in 2022 to 2023, and vegetables remain a politically sensitive commodity. Price spikes in onions, another key ingredient used in Indian cooking, contributed to the fall of more than one state government in the past. It is 1 year until the Olympics in Paris, and perhaps no one is more excited than the president of the International Olympic Committee, Thomas Bach. Bach could not hide his excitement and gave a little dance at an event in the host city. The former Olympic fencer was beckoned on stage by performers and joined them in a dance routine before attempting a ball spin. The Paris 2024 Olympics opening ceremony will take place on 26 July 2024. The importance of food as a vital tool in promoting cultural exchange and harmony has been highlighted at the 2023 Abuja International Food Fair. The event was organized by members of the diplomatic community for diplomats to enhance cooperation among foreign missions in Nigeria.
The diplomatic drive in the nation's capital is abuzz as friends and family members in the diplomatic community gather to celebrate the 2023 International Food Festival. Cuisines from across the world were on display alongside arts and music. The idea is to enrich relations among diplomats in Abuja.
The idea was to bring the international community together and just showcase how multicultural and international Abuja and Nigeria really is, and really to bring everyone together. So we felt what better way to bring everyone together than with some food, some drinks, and some art. And yeah, happy to have produced this concept and bring all the diplomatic community together.
Just to create an atmosphere of fun, because where you have food and beverage actually, brings, people together, so Diplomatic Village, promotes things as such.
Championed by the Canadian High Commission in Nigeria, the fair attracted participants from over 11 embassies across the world.
It brings us together to have fun as well, at the same time promoting our culture, our cuisine, which is very rich, actually. We are so excited about the response that we had from the public and the community here today.
The idea behind this concept is very simple. Food is a convener. People assemble around food, regardless of their religion, tribal affiliation, ethnicity, nationality. Food is a convener, and food brings everybody together, and everybody loves food. So the idea is to bring everyone together today and to try this concept and this pilot, because it's the first time we do this as a concept. So this is the general idea.
The 2023 fair is the first ever to be held by foreign missions in Nigeria, and the organizers are hoping that this becomes an annual event to enhance diplomatic cooperation.
The Portuguese capital gears up for a visit by the Pope next week. A local pastry shop took the chance to come up with a brand new treat: cookies bearing images of the pontiff, which are proving popular among locals and tourists alike. Pastry shop Bach de Marquet is one step away from one of the main venues where Francis will be for the World Youth Day, a global gathering of young Catholics happening in Lisbon from August 1 to 6. It all started as a joke between one of the owners, Fernando Santos, and his pastry chefs, but it quickly turned into reality. They're now making up to 120 cookies per day and hope to sell thousands during Francis's visit. The image is edible, and each cookie costs €2.20. Although Francis has a busy schedule, Santos hopes he has time to pop by the pastry shop and try one. And that's it for The World Today. I'm Susan Ilian. Have a good night.